All right, it's 6:02 p.m. I'll call the meeting back to order, meeting of the Carver Select Board for Tuesday, July 20th. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the Select Board page on our website for a listing and application. I'd ask you all to stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our community prayer. Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen. All right. The first item on our agenda this evening is a presentation from Carver Cares. Mr. Lester Fawn, am I correct that they've asked to come to the next Select Board meeting instead?
Mr. Chair, I think we skipped citizens' participation.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. I apologize. Our first item is citizens' participation. Are there any citizens that would like to address the board this evening? Seeing none. So since Carver Cares is unable to join us, Mr. LaFond, would you like to give us your town administrator update a little earlier this evening?
I would be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. On our list here, the first is the CARES Act update. Not a lot new to report. We did get a check about 2 weeks ago. We've got about $600,000 now in reimbursement. We have about $700,000, about $750,000 still under review. I do know that there's 3 under review right now. We know this because they always, when they have questions, they ask for additional information. So we do have 3 that are under review that are sizable, totaling approximately $700,000 themselves. Those are the major outstanding reimbursements we're looking for. In addition, we do have about $200,000 more that we'll be seeking from school expenses. Probably $125,000, $130,000 to replace the rooftop units in this building, and some amount to have the touchless doors outside. As you probably know, the doors are 22 years old and they look it. So installing touchless doors would be helpful under the CARES Act. The other piece here is we are going to be purchasing some stretchers, automatic stretchers for the EMS. That can be operated by one person. Those are items that have also been in other towns have been approved. So we are likely going to be requesting more than our $1.7 million allotment because we have every reason to believe that some of those funds will not be approved. And any funds that we may need to seek some alternative funding for, we're confident we'll be able to use our ARPA funds that we'll eventually get from the federal government, and that's about $1.2 million. We haven't seen that yet, but we know it's coming. So Plymouth Street water line.
I just had a quick question.
Oh, yes, Jim.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chairman. So for the CARES Act, can you just go over real quick, like what's the process? I know we've this is kind of towards the end, but as far as the everybody puts their requests in. Is this something that you submit, that the finance director submits, or what's the process, how that actually gets submitted?
Right. We have ongoing conversations about it, but the finance director is the clearinghouse for people to submit requests for. Usually, before there's an expenditure, there's information provided to her, to Meg previously. And Meg would do her own analysis of whether or not this would meet the criteria. We would then have a conversation, her and I, to determine, really based upon, do we think this is something we'd like to submit? No, understanding $1.7 million is a lot, but it's amazing how quickly that can add up too. So then between us, we make a decision as to whether or not we think this is eligible, has a good chance of reimbursement, and ought to fit into the entire scheme of things. And then prepared by the town accountant's office, and then comes to me for review and my signature before I send it to the county.
Okay.
And to that effect, too, we are, in fact, this week we have another meeting. We've had a couple meetings, weekly or bi-weekly, with a group of department heads who tend to be more active in submitting reimbursement. Some things that are obviously a school department, EMS, buildings and grounds, those tend to be the departments that would be submitting some COA, some library. So we're meeting on a regular basis just to keep track of this. It's amazing that even though you think you've got it all, there's always something else somebody, comes up with that should work. So that's an ongoing process here. So.
Thank you.
The next item, Plymouth Street water line. Some of you may already be aware, if you've driven up there, that the water line is installed. We are now in compliance with DEP, the administrative consent order. The next piece of the puzzle is determining how many homes that the town's going to tie in, and the best approach to do it. One of the, as people are aware, we were a little disappointed at a community meeting a couple weeks ago when we didn't have participation from DEP. I had a meeting with our engineering firm, Kevin Ford, last week, and what DEP is requesting of the town is that the town, really through our engineer, put together a plan. And when I say that, we have 19 homes that are impacted in some fashion. 5 of those, obviously those that absolutely need to be tied into the water system, and their wells need to be decommissioned. There's 2 others that are really right there on the cusp. And then there's 12 that have never had any, within a certain parameter, geographic area, but there's never been any elevated tests. So what is the town going to do? How is the town going to encourage these people? Is the town going to encourage these people? So DEP is looking for a plan from the town. That should be ready this week for our engineer to submit to DEP for conversation. And ultimately, that would be the basis of the next meeting with the community. DEP, again, with the plan, they advise us that they'll attend the next meeting once we have this plan. And again, the plan would be, in a sense, of educating the public on what their options might be. A couple factors that come up. We have these 12 homes that have never had any type of impact, elevated levels. But if these homes, for instance, aren't going to tie into the system, the town, we don't want to be, we're not going to want to have to monitor these wells indefinitely. The town is offering a remedy to a potential problem. So those are the types of details that I think are kind of a community decision as to what the town's liability, what liability the town's willing to accept long term, even though we have a remedy in place. So that's one of the issues that I think that comes to mind with regard to those 12 homes. Again, with regard to the other 2, it really comes down to really a matter of wells, decommissioning wells if they tie in. That shouldn't be an issue for the 12, even if they tie in, but that needs to come from DEP. And DEP has been, they haven't been decisive in offering their guidance on that just yet.
And Mr. LaFond, if I may, just when you mentioned that we held a meeting but DEP didn't participate,
Yeah.
they weren't invited to the meeting. In fact, they confirmed that they were going to attend the meeting, right? They just didn't show up for the meeting.
Right, I mean, it was actually scheduled around.
Right, I just want the public to be clear that they were certainly invited and led the town to believe that they would be at that meeting.
And this coming week, Kevin Ford will be sending out an email to the email that he has on file with all these residents to give them essentially the update that I just gave you. And And in light of the fact that it's going to take probably a week or two for the town to touch base with and meet with DEP, and I say the town, really the engineering firm, to discuss this plan that they're going to be proposing, it would be after that meeting would occur. So that could be end of the first week of August, perhaps, or really depends upon how quickly the town can get feedback from DEP as to whether or not what the town would be proposing makes sense. And of course, when I say the town proposing, that really means our engineering firm, really. So as I said, Kevin Ford will be sending out information next week to all the residences up there to at least let them know the status.
Okay, and if I could just ask you to let this board know when that next community meeting is going to take place, appreciate it.
And if I could just add one point, I just want people to know, too, that this engineering firm has a licensed site professional. So those are the people who have a special license to do these kind of tests on water. So it's not just any old, any old engineer.
And moving along here, the pickleball has been brought up, but I think this is really more of just a pickleball courts at the senior center. This issue is a little bit broader in terms of what the town's plan may be with the entire site now that the town owns the adjacent parcel. As I say, this coming week, Thursday, I'll be meeting with Dan Badger up at the site and hopefully someone from the COA, Recreation, and I guess those you'd call, direct stakeholders.
What time is that?
3:30.
This Thursday?
That's, yes, and I'll be notified. That just came about today, so
Okay.
I'll send out notices to the various players here. Although everybody does believe that pickleball is a good activity up there. We've done a feasibility study, as you know. We have some funds to put towards a preliminary conceptual design, but after the purchase of the property next door, the thought was that there was at least some responsibility to look at those parcels as a whole and to see, it gets more of a visioning as to maybe how the parcels can work together. And chair of our recreation committee, Mary Ross, as you know, is working on this, trying to get a pickleball courts up there for probably at least a year now. So she was understanding the fact that we need to take a little bit of a broader look. Even if that could be very simple, that could be a matter of 2 meetings up there, just to everybody to feel comfortable with what can and can't happen on the conservation piece. What can or can't happen towards the water on the conservation piece, and what other types of activities may be we may need to be aware of for the future that may impact traffic and those parking. So as I said, I don't think that's going to take much of an effort, but we certainly want to be online to be submitting funds to the CPC this year for pickleball. So, and my glasses. Let me move beyond this one here. Route 44 project update. Tonight you will have on your agenda a proposed technical review fund. This is that the town would have in place with Hillwood, the developer. Couple things with regard to that. A couple of weeks ago, I did come to have a conversations and came to a basic agreement with Hillwood as to what a technical review fund would look like, how it would operate. Fairly standard. It's similar to what planning boards have been using for forever. We kind of hashed that out, and then working with town council recommended a more formal agreement than just a memo that we would sign commemorating what we discussed. So what you have in front of you tonight is that agreement. That agreement has been updated very briefly in conversation with Representative Hillwood. So it is in line for the board to approve tonight. I would ask that if the board should choose to do that, you do so subject to any minor recommendations of town council. Keeping in mind, council has drafted it. He's approved it to form. But if there's any last minute feedback from Hillwood, any non-material items, so I think to the extent that you would maybe have that contingency, that it would be helpful. There's also been a drafted agreement for the redevelopment authority as a separate entity. Obviously, they have their own responsibilities, even if we're working in concert. Initially, the thought that we needed a technical review fund was because of the needs of the fire department. That was the primary focus initially, and town council did advise that we're probably better off having a more encompassing agreement for the town, so that it didn't just apply to the fire department, but there may be permitting needs, there could be needs in the building department. Would seemingly be very, very little if necessary, but to have to come back and amend an agreement didn't make sense. So we have a draft agreement for the board to hopefully approve tonight, and there's a draft agreement for RDA, which I've forwarded to RDA for their consideration the next time they meet. Any other questions regard to that? I know everybody at this point's already done site walks, and I think we're all reasonably in the same boat as being familiar with the project. Town hall and library update. Town hall, the siding has been chosen. As you know, July 1, funds are available for this project. I thought they'd been ordered, but we do have some questions as to how best to handle a procurement for this type of project. And in doing so, what we think that procurement, how that may drive the cost, depending on how you feel you would have to procure a particular item or a project, does obviously drive the cost. So that's the consideration we have now, but after a very intensive review by the Buildings and Grounds Department, they have chosen a siding that is fairly similar to what we have here right now. Library, their engineering firm that Mr. Seatontoff has chosen has begun their review of the library, keeping in mind that the goal is to have the good cost estimates on and a plan for updating the HVAC system in the library. We hope at a special town meeting in the fall that we'll have a good pricing and a good plan to be able to do that. That is something that we committed that we would make every effort to do on behalf of, not I say the library, but the town. So that is on track. Those funds also became available July 1 in the new budget cycle. And the building commissioner update, we did have interviewed 5 people today for building commissioner, myself, Elaine, Jesse Boyle with the fire department, Jim Walsh. We all participated, and we interviewed 5 people, and we have a good direction that we all agree on. We've got some follow-up work to do, but we are very pleased that I think we've got a couple of good candidates. So,
Mr. LaFont, did you want to address the Boy Scout Troop 48 recycling project, or is that something you wanted to leave till later?
Till later, please.
Okay, that's fine. So it is 6:20, and we have a public hearing scheduled, a commercial garage public hearing. It's continuation for Rossetti Trucking Incorporated, located at 107 North Main Street, and this is continued from June 15th, 2021. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? All right, all in favor? Aye. And just so the public is aware...
We're continuing it, right? That means a continuation.
That's right. And just so the public is aware, Selectman Robert Bellarmine is joining us this evening remotely via speakerphone. So are the proponents here for Rossetti Trucking? If you'd like to come up to the microphone. Sure. Are there any members of the public that would like to address? Seeing none. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, so we're,
Speak-
good evening, everybody.
Speak into the mic.
Good evening, everybody. So thank you very much for the continuation from last month. My grandfather passed away on the same date last month, so I just appreciate it,
Condolences.
first and foremost. We're a small trucking company, and as you guys know, with the pandemic going on, everybody's just been hit across the board. So what we'd like to do is differentiate our business just a little bit, continuing with the trucking, but adding on some repair work on the side. And we currently rent a garage from Tremont Enterprises, otherwise known as Roby's gas station, across the street from Shaw's there. So we figured that if we apply for this license and successfully obtain it, that we can then start doing some other work to bring in more income for our small company.
So are you going to be bringing other folks doing repair work for other people?
No, just my dad and I.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Questions from the board?
So I guess this question is for Elaine. That's all part of the license, right? Adding the repairs?
The commercial garage license.
Yep. Oh, that's included. Okay.
Anything? Mr. Belbin, do you have anything?
Nope. Pretty straightforward.
Thank you very much,
All
everybody.
right. And again, there's no members of the public here that would like to speak?
I just had a quick question.
Mr. Hoffman?
So what are the, and I apologize if it's in here, the proposed hours that the garage will be open?
Yeah, so 9 to 5, pretty standard. Actually, Roby's gas station is open from, I think it's 5:30 to like 6 o'clock every day. So hours would be open between 9 to 5.
Just weekdays or weekends as well?
Weekdays, yep.
Weekday.
Weekdays,
So
Monday
just
to
Monday to
Friday.
Friday.
Yep, yes, sir.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Anybody else have anything?
No?
Is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
I make a motion we adjourn the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion from the board?
I make a motion to approve this license.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, any second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Well, we have a few minutes before our next public hearing, so let's see here. Why don't we perhaps jump to the 6:55 item, a discussion and possible vote on a cap of out-of-town beach stickers being sold. Any thoughts from any members of the board on this? It looks like we got some information from Mrs. Weston that so far this year we've sold 59 out-of-town non-resident stickers at $60 each for an amount of $3,540. Mr. Belbin, I think you may have been the one that asked for this on the agenda. Any particular thoughts on this?
No, I don't think there should be a cap. I think if we can get the money in and people are using the facilities, then I'm happy.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts? Yes, Mr. Hoffman.
Have we ever had a cap before on out of town?
Not to the best of my knowledge. Mrs. Weston?
No.
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 Okay.
I'm surprised that we sold that many out-of-town stickers. That number seems pretty high to me.
It's the highest it's ever been since I've been here.
Right, so
We have very nice ponds.
yes, we do. Yes, we do. So I'm assuming that everyone's comfortable leaving it the way it is with no cap? All right. All right, well, all right, why don't we move on to the 705 item then, a discussion and possible vote on increasing the parking ticket fee. And I believe this is the parking ticket fee at the ponds, correct, Mr. Belbin?
Yes.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the increase from $15 to $50.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I think that this would be a deterrent for people to go ahead and continue to go to the ponds and take away other people's rights to go to the pond who do have a sticker. So there should be some type of a penalty. I don't think $15 is enough.
And I would be in agreement. I do have one particular question for our town administrator, who seems to have stepped out of the room. And he's back. So, Mr. LaFawn, just a quick question. The agenda item reads, increase parking ticket fee from $15 to $50. It should read, increased parking ticket fee at the town beaches from $15 to $50. So I guess my question is is there an issue with us voting on that tonight? Is that clear enough that you think we can
I
vote?
believe that's well within the context of the agenda item. That would be my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Mr. LaFond. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. It's 6:27. Why don't we take a 3-minute break, and we'll come back at 6:30 for our public hearing. Yes, Mr. LaFond?
I had asked to pass over briefly the Boy Scout recycling piece. And
Yes?
because I forgot to bring my note with me.
Okay.
But I wanted to just point out that Carver's Troop 48 will be, I'm sorry, they're going to be actually using the recycling at the Rochester Road location. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm misreading this.
I thought it was behind
That's
the
fine.
EMS
Yes.
building.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is one piece of the email I did.
Yeah.
So they will be, they had their recycling center down at Rochester facility, and they will be moving it up here at the so-called DPW barn. And that is going to start, I believe, July 20th. They were expecting this to happen, maybe if they needed a vote from the board on this date, but they will be moving forward with that, as I don't believe any of us think takes a vote of the board to do that. But in terms of at least letting the public know, and certainly thanking the scouts, I think that was, even though I did it not the least bit eloquently, I think it was worthwhile raising. So.
And just so everyone knows, I did speak to John Woods from DPW and EMS Chief Mike Ryan about the location of the receptacle, and both of them had no issues. They didn't think there would be any problems back there.
So this will be permanent?
Yes.
Yeah,
So the reason that they had to switch was because they used to have bins down at the transfer station.
Right.
And the town of Wareham told them they couldn't do that anymore. And this is how they make money.
Sure.
I mean, this is their main source of making money, so I think it's great,
I think it's great, too.
right back here in town.
Anything we can do to help out the scouts and all the other, so many nonprofit groups in town, I think it's a great thing, so.
Because I know a lot of people had questioned that when the transfer station closed or changed hands there, that they wanted to make sure that the Boy Scout recycling could still continue, so.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everybody understood that it was permanently moved
Yeah.
to the.
I'm glad I could raise the for the board, so.
All right. It is now 6:30, so we will move on to our public hearing. We have an N-Star Eversource poll hearing. This is a continuation from June 15, 2021, on Indian Street, 6 polls. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing?
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you ladies like to come up to the microphone? And Mr. Hasiotis, I see you. Thank you.
Do we vote on that? To open the public hearing? You have to vote?
Do we have to vote on the
They voted.
motion to open the?
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Well, we're continuing.
We're continuing it, right.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this tonight? Seeing none. So ladies, I think the last time you were here, the board discussed the 6 polls, and I think there was a suggestion made that perhaps there might be some kind of compromise that could be thought of. Any thoughts there? Any new thoughts on this whole?
Sure,
whole
so I
project?
can address that. So for the record, my name is Terry Forsanger. I'm the Supervisor of Rights and Permits. Karen Johnson was before the board on the last 2 hearings that we had, and she asked me to attend this evening with some additional information that could perhaps help the board with this decision. I did speak to engineering at great lengths about what alternative options there could be. In particular, there were 2 questions that I believe came from a member of the board regarding option from the east to provide service or an option from the west to provide service underground. Engineering looked at both of those options. From the east, it's not feasible because it is a privately owned line. We can't connect customers to other people's equipment, so that is not a feasible option. It is, however, feasible to construct the service line coming from the west. However, that comes at a very much higher cost than the alternative, which is the 6 overhead poles. Just to provide.
So from the west, is that the Rochester Road end, or is that the Route 58?
The west is the Rochester Road.
Rochester Road end, just for the public is aware.
Okay, so just to provide area of magnitude, undergrounding, engineering is saying would cost about 10 times more for the customer as opposed to the overhead. And we know the overhead is preferred by the customer. We do need rights, so we would ask, because right now the petition that is before this board is for the overhead. If it was denied, we would, and there was and we explored the underground, and the customer decided to go ahead with that, and it involved the town jurisdictional roadway, we'd have to come back to you with another petition for underground, because all we have petitioned the town for is overhead. So we would ask the board to make a determination as to whether or not to approve the petition.
All right, questions from the board? Mr. Belbin?
I have some. Yes, I have a couple.
Okay.
Since the town of Carver has approved the scenic road law, which says the cutting or removing or tearing down of trees, all right, you can't do that on a scenic road. How will the utility maintain it? Because if you can't take it down, the trees for aerial wires.
So he's, if I may, Mr. Chair, he's referring to our open space and recreation plan, and in that plan it designates certain roads in town as scenic roads. But I do want to add that our town council pointed out, as Bob has said, if you do need to cut down the trees, you can't just do it. You have to go to the planning board and get permission to do that, because there's a reason why they're scenic roads, and a lot of it has to do with the trees. Were you planning on removing trees at all?
So if this board were to condition the approval based on that, then, we don't construct unless we get all the permits that we need.
Okay.
So if that's part of your process, then I would say yes, we would have to pursue that.
Mr. Hasiotis, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, if I may. I believe the design from National Grid doesn't have any tree removal. It has tree limbing to put the poles in. So the only other thing I would add, if we were to bring underground an additional, I think it's roughly 1,800 feet versus the 400 feet of poles, I would almost say there's going to be more disturbance tree-wise and area-wise underground rather than putting the 4 poles overhead. I don't know how many manholes you need for 1,800 feet. I'm thinking it's somewhere between 4 and 5. So if that were to happen, there's going to be extensive tree removal to bring it underground. So the design does say tree limbing, no tree removal for the 5 or 6 poles that would be coming.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So we can make that part of the condition of the permit.
We can. Mr. Belbin, did you have anything else?
Yeah, the other question I had was, when I drove down there, I drove down the road from 58, where there's telephone poles, and then the cul-de-sac has underground, and we go a little further, then there's houses, it goes underground to those houses. We're adding, when I had my house done, we had to put in underground from the roadway in. I know with all new developments, we're requiring them to put all underground. So it's kind of a past practice that we require underground utilities. And I think that road, it's really interesting when you drive down it, that you get to this point and there's no telephone poles or wires going overhead. So it kind of goes with the rural character of the town, to bring it back to that point. And one of the other things that council did say in a follow-up is that we may approve it, and we may not. The other thing is that if we want to make it a condition for the town to go ahead and have all underground for future, we'd have to go to a bylaw change to go before town meeting, which is something that we may have to go ahead and do so we don't come into this problem again.
Right.
Right.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yes, Ms. Hewman.
so one of the reasons that Alexander Lane and the 2 or 3 houses to the west of that cul-de-sac have underground is because it was a subdivision, and under the planning board, under our zoning, planning board is allowed to require that. On the other side, they're allowed to require underground utilities. However, since Massachusetts is the only state in the union that has Form A lots, on the other side of Indian Street, the house lots are chopped up, and that's approval not required. So they don't have the jurisdiction to require that. So that's that issue, Bob. Yes, they were required to do it first to a certain amount of Indian Street, but that's because they came, the developer came to them with a subdivision, a Form A plan, Form B plan. So they were allowed to condition it. I think my interpretation of what we got from council was that we really don't have that jurisdiction.
And that was my interpretation as well. Mr. Belvin, did you have anything else?
Well, one of the question that I had to town council was that the way that the question was asked for him to answer is one thing, but when you don't ask it the other way to say, well, at what position can the Board of Selectmen deny it? And that's one of the issues that I struggle with, because I look at what the town has went ahead and done and what we're looking at to do with new projects that come along is to go underground. So I really think that one of the things that we should do is look at this as an option for the future.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that. Anything else from any members of the board? All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Is there a motion from the board?
I would like to reluctantly approve this permit on the condition that there'll be no tree removal during the process of installing the poles and wires.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So
Yes,
just
Mr.
to clarify a few things in my head and also for the public. So basically, the reply that we got from town council basically told us we can't deny this legally.
Basically, yeah. It is not within our
It's not in our
jurisdiction to do that.
jurisdiction.
No.
I just want, because I know this has been a topic for everybody in the public, and I just want not everyone's privy to what we received, but just the email that we received, the reply,
Yeah.
that we were told that we can't deny this because it's not in our jurisdiction.
It was pretty clear.
And that's why I agree with Bob that we should look into this
Mm-hmm.
as far as at our next town meeting to have some type of bylaw set up. So
I
that-
agree. There are a number of
Absolutely.
scenic ways and
100%.
roads in town
Mm-hmm.
that obviously were identified on the master plan to be protected, but I think what this shows is they're not quite as protected as some people may think they are. So we probably do need to take some action. But on this, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just one more point. So that in the process of doing this, and I don't know who you will relay the terms of this permit to, but please let them know that that's a condition of the permit. And even if they go back to the planning board and ask the planning board now, that doesn't count. This is the permitting authority.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
3-1. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hasiotis, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right. Next is a discussion and possible vote on raising rates in the Emergency Medical Services Department. And Chief Ryan, if you'd like to step up. How are you tonight?
Doing good. I hope you have the letter I sent that outlines the rate increase that we're looking to propose.
We do.
Last time we increased our rates were back in 2018. It's pretty normal, of course, for a few years to reevaluate the revenue from the ambulance fund to look at what the industry standard for billing rates are. Our billing company, we use Comstar Billing Services. They actually recommended a higher rate than what I proposed to bring it up to. They recommended a rate that they said the top 5% of their ambulance services are collecting on and are receiving the funds for. The numbers were pretty high. So what in the calculation of this was I took our current along with what they proposed as their best and took the average of what's in the middle of that, which is how we came out to these figures for these proposed. It does still keep us pretty evenly across Plymouth County for all the other departments. The big difference is though we're the only self-sufficient ambulance service in the county. Everyone else is blended within a fire department. So having that said, I mean, they look at their revenue, but they don't depend on it as much as we do. After this, currently, but again, a lot of the chiefs I've spoken to, I know Duxbury already did raise their rates. There's other departments that are looking to reevaluate their rates because they haven't done so in a few years. Right now, with this, if we're increasing these rates, we would be 11th out of 21 for the BLS rate. For the ALS level 1 rate would be 4th from the top out of 21. The ALS 2 rate, we would be number 2 out of the 21 communities. And then the mileage rate would be we'd be in the top 5 of the 21 communities in Plymouth County that we have the information from. But again, over the course of the next 6 months to a year, they're all looking at assessing their rates, and we'll probably at the end of that fall probably right where we were before, right in the middle of everyone. It is kind of important to look at it because currently this fiscal year we brought in a little less than we did last year, even though we did more calls, and a lot of that stems from the first 2 months of the fiscal year being in July and August, is money being received from the last 2 months of May and June fiscal year FY20. We were down calls then. So it's really hard to tell. We'll see how July and August come in, and if we do a comparison of September to beginning of September to end of August, we'll have a good idea how well the fiscal year call volume actually did reimburse us. But in the end, we did bring in a little bit less than we did last year. We also saw an increase in the amount of people on social health care. So Mass Health, Medicare, due to the pandemic, a lot of people out of work, a lot of people took those options. So with that, when we bill for contracted services, such as Mass Health and Medicare, no matter how much we increase our rates, they have a set rate, no matter what. We can't bargain with that. So we unfortunately have to try to make up that cost through private insurance, through motor vehicle accident insurance, claims, things like that, by increasing the rates we charge them. And that's where we go from there. So that's kind of an explanation of why we're looking to change the rates and how we came up with the figures we came up with. A lot of this goes to private insurance. A lot of our patients do, if they don't have private insurance, they have some sort of social health care, whether it be Medicare, Mass Health, or there's a few others out there that they belong to. But in the end, we bill them, and then the patients normally pay their deductible, their copay, but the insurances pay the rest. Where percentage of patients that we transport that don't have any insurance is very small. And with them, we know we can work out a payment plan through our billing company.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
I think it was
Mr. Belbin, did you have anything?
very well explained.
Yeah, Mike, the amount of money that we took in, has that been enough to cover the expenses for the ambulance service, is what we're charging now?
So this past year, it was extremely close. So with what we turned back for unexpended costs from the salary account and the operations account, we also had another account that had money set aside in it for IV pumps that we found out from the state we don't need, which has been on hold for a while. So by transferring that money back in, and with the money we got this year, we actually came up almost even. When I say almost even, it's a difference of maybe a couple $100, where we were kind of in the negative. So my concern is that moving forward, if this continues with the 82% of our patients being on social health care, next year we might actually be in a negative, more so in a positive, without raising the rates, I should say.
Right. And the other question I had is, does that include the purchase of new ambulances through that account also in the future, or no?
So the goal is to purchase ambulances, anything related to the EMS department through that account. So the plan moving forward would be that because we are going to need a new ambulance in the next fiscal year, it will be in part of the capital expense plan for this coming fiscal year when we do our presentations. So for FY 23, we'll be looking to purchase an ambulance. We will look to take a large lump of sum out of what is left in the ambulance fund to pay for the ambulance and then bond part of that. So that way we're not taking $300,000 out or $280, $250, whatever it's going to cost us for the ambulance, depending on the cost at the time. To take all that out of the ambulance fund would deplete it. So we'd look to take roughly half out and then build it back up again.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mike.
All right. Anything else from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the new rates for the
Second.
EMS department.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Keep up the good work.
All right. Next on our agenda this evening is a discussion and possible vote on the Forest Street Property Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. LaFond, was Mrs. Clark planning on joining us
That is my understanding.
for this?
Yes.
Okay, and they have a meeting currently, right?
Yes.
So why don't we perhaps skip over this and move on to our next item, which is a discussion on a meeting to set the select board goals and objectives. Earlier this year, we all emailed our goals and objectives into Mrs. Weston, and we agreed to later set up a meeting to discuss those. I thought perhaps the first meeting in September would be a good meeting to discuss these. What is the board's thought on that? Any thoughts?
Sounds good to me.
That's good.
Anyone else? Bob, any thoughts?
No, it's all set.
Okay. So,
And are we having a facilitator? I think Mr. LaFond is.
yes, I think we agreed earlier that we would try to bring in a facilitator. Correct, Mr. LaFond?
That is correct.
And have you identified someone?
Yes, I do.
And what is the date for the first meeting in September?
Yeah, I don't have my phone with me, Mr. LaFond.
We've established that.
Boy, I never forget it. The one night I do, I need it all the time, so.
That would be the 7th, September 7th.
September 7th? Okay, so September 7th, and perhaps we'll look into an alternate location to have that meeting a little more conducive, perhaps the fire station where we did it before, or depending on what's available. So we will follow up on that. So
Just to let you know, I won't be available on the 7th.
Oh,
you're not available on the 7th? Okay.
how about the,
How about the second week of September, or the second meeting of that September? Would that work for everybody?
21st?
21st?
That's fine.
That's fine, so Mr. LaFawn, did you say September 21st?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we set September 21st for our goals and objectives? And you'll work with the facilitator, Mr. LaFawn? Thank you. All right. Our next item is ratification of the finance director contract. Earlier tonight in executive session, we discussed a contract for a new finance director. Is there a motion?
I move that we ratify the contract for the new finance director / accountant, Sue Moken.
I'll second that.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Mr. LaFawn, you'll pass on our welcome to Ms. Moquin?
Well,
And perhaps,
we'll set up an appropriate.
yes, perhaps we set up a time for us to meet the new finance director. Thank you. All right. Next up is a discussion and possible vote on the establishment of a technical review fund for the Route 44 Urban Renewal Project. And I think you all have that wording in your packet. Mr. LaFawn, would you like to speak to this a little bit?
Yes, I'm a little slow finding the document itself, but I mentioned earlier during my update that in order for the town to have the appropriate technical engineering and other consultants guide the town in terms of what the impact may be and what the town's resources we may need in order to deal with whatever the development is on Route 44. We do need some funds to do that, and as is typical, the developer is responsible for that, to fund those needs. Initially, our thoughts are that we definitely need some assistance. Our fire department needs some assistance in terms of analyzing the possible impacts of a facility up there and under what conditions. The chief does have some very in-depth thoughts about that. The problem is at this point is it's still in development. There's still we're not aware of an end user yet. So to some extent, the department and perhaps other town departments simply don't have the knowledge that they need to make in terms of what technical assistance they need. As we learn more about what the plans are, as the plans get more in depth, then obviously it becomes a little bit clearer for the fire department to assess that. However, just on the larger level, in terms of the fire safety, fire engineering services, that's certainly well beyond anything that any local community has at its disposal. It's important for the fire department to have that type of expertise. So the account that we're setting up would include an initial deposit of $20,000 by the developer, not the town. And as the town utilizes those resources for technical support, those funds would be replenished by the developer so that the town's always has about $20,000 available for additional assistance. Those are the general terms that I discussed with the representative at Hillwood. They're agreeable to that. It is what's included in the agreement. And as it stands right now, the RDA has their own drafted agreement. They do have their own needs for consulting services that are separate and aside from those required necessarily by town departments. So at this point, council has recommended that establishment of an account really should be through essentially a contract with the select board and not at the administrative level. So because of that, you have the draft in front of you, and I would ask that you approve that, subject to any minor modifications required by town council.
I don't think there is, you never gave a document on that.
Okay. There's no document.
Mr. Chairman,
I don't have a copy of a document.
All right.
Does anyone else have a document?
No.
No.
If you would like to hold this till the end of the meeting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Why don't you get us a copy, if you could.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Belvin.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of it either,
I will
Um,
email it to him.
but can I just talk about this for a second?
Sure.
So the Redevelopment Authority is a past member. They have an account that gets funded by the developer, Route 44 Development, for just this case, not just for the use of the Redevelopment Authority, but it's for the use of the whole town too. So the money can go through the Redevelopment Authority, and then they can pay the bills instead of the towns getting a separate fund out, having money put into that. And I think it'd be a little cleaner instead of having a separate account. That they have their money and we have this other set of money from the developers.
I actually think it's cleaner to have a separate account.
Well, again, council did recommend us,
Yeah.
because of the the size and the scope, keeping it separate from other technical review needs that are unrelated.
Definitely.
That's why it was, recommended by council that we have, a dedicated
Yeah.
technical review account. And effectively, this would go away at some point, too.
Right.
The other technical review account that the RDA may have in place, presumably that may be in place forever,
Right.
or indefinitely. This is
Yeah.
really a place and time.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, the ordinary technical review account is for, engineers and traffic consultants and things, but this would be way more than that.
Yes.
That's the way I'm looking at it.
I agree. Let's have Mr. LaFond get us a copy
Okay.
of the document, and Mrs. Weston, if either you or Mr. LaFond could email Mr. Belbin a copy so he has it when we review it. All right. Well, we also need the town administrator for the next discussion item, I believe, which is a discussion and possible vote on the appointment of an additional member to the Carver, Marion, Wareham Regional Refuse Disposal District. Mr. Belbin, did you have any thoughts on that? Has anyone approached you at all about having interest?
I had a couple people inquire about it, and I've sent them the application to apply. I don't know if anybody has applied. I haven't gotten any notification from it. If Ms. Weston, does she know of any?
No.
I'm not aware of any applicants.
Nobody as of right now.
Okay.
So do we want to perhaps push this off to the next meeting to see if some of those folks step up and show an interest in applying?
That's fine. I don't see a whole lot going on in the next meeting of the district.
All right, so Mrs. Weston, if you could just include this as an agenda item for our August meeting. And at that point, why don't we take a 5-minute break while we wait for Mr. LaFond to return?
I just got that that information.
Okay. Great. Thanks. It's 7 o'clock. We'll be in recess till 7:05.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's 7:05. I'll call the meeting back to order. And we will continue
I know all the backgrounds.
with a discussion of our agenda item for the establishment of a technical review fund for the Route 44 Urban Renewal Project. Mr. LaFond.
Yes, and I apologize for not having this document in front of you. Just briefly, this is the establishment, maintenance, and use of review fee funds that has been drafted by town council in conversation with me and the Hillwood, the developer, to provide funds for our town departments for technical review that's necessary in their oversight within their jurisdiction of this project. As I mentioned, there is a separate agreement that they would have to have with the RDA, as the RDA is in the town are not the same legal entity. It's possible that down the road that it may be necessary for the North Carver Water District to have some sort of, they may have some technical review needs themselves at some point. So it's very possible that there'll have to be some mechanism in place for that too. However, the only thing that really needs to be, I think, determined here by the board would be setting the initial deposit amount at $20,000.
That's
what-
item number 4.
Yes, that is what that I had agreed to with the developer. That's something the town council thought was appropriate.
Okay, so that would read, upon execution of this agreement, the developer shall make an additional deposit into the account in the amount of $20,000?
Correct, correct.
All right. All right. Anything else on this, Mr. LaFond?
As I mentioned, other than any minor amendments that may be ultimately advised by town council, I would think that this is all set to go.
All right. A discussion from the board?
I have some.
Mr. Belvin?
All right, so under number 5, we've already determined who the fire service engineer company is going to be. Is Jensen Hughes Inc.?
Yes, the fire chief has interviewed, and he is planning on retaining them, yes.
Okay. Did the developer have any say in who would be part of that?
I'm sorry, Bob, if you could repeat that, please?
Did the developer have any input into what companies the chief was looking at?
Yes, to my knowledge, the developer did have conversation with the chief and informed him of this particular firm that they had working with in another community at the moment. The chief did reach out to his peers in that community. He did interview this particular firm, he and his command staff, and they've decided that this would be the appropriate firm to work with. But it was a firm that was brought to their attention by Hillwood.
Okay, and do we want to add in that if for some reason that it becomes an issue with this company, that we have the opportunity to get another one?
I certainly think that's reasonable. Like I say, I know that the fire department is pleased, but I suspect, Bob, I can certainly follow up, and I think that might be one of those, exactly those types of conditions that town council may want to, put in place if they believe it's necessary.
Okay, I just want to keep the door open in case something happens that we don't have to go ahead and reopen a contract, that we could have just added a couple extra words or any other company the fire chief approves. That would be my wording, but
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
it.
that's a good idea as well.
yeah.
Definitely.
The next one that I was reading, because like I said, I just got this, is number 6. What that basically says, it looks like that any board, commission, or committee that needs an outside consultant or whatnot, that if Hillwood doesn't approve of it, then he goes back to the Board of Selectmen. Is that how that goes to get approval
I'm sorry, Bob, let me.
or not?
Well,
Yeah, I think this means if there's any board or committee, right now, I believe what it's essentially saying is that any, in addition to the fire department, any board or committee who needs or feels they need technical assistance for this project would come to the select board, and the select board would authorize that. So if the building department, for instance, or planning board,
or conservation.
as an example, right, needed some technical assistance, they would come to the select board, and the select board would authorize that through this fund.
But if we'll say, just an FYI, if we'll say the planning board says that they need $50,000 for a special consultant or whatnot, then Hillwood would come to us and appeal that to the Board of Selectmen, saying, hey, that's too much. You need to find someone else.
I don't think they have
That-
a choice.
Yeah, no, and I think they wouldn't be, I don't think the planning board would say we need 50,000 per se. They would be authorized to use this fund, so the planning board would, let's, for the sake of argument, they spend $5,000 on on a consultant, an engineer. Well, that $5,000 is reimbursed by Hillwood to keep that fund at 20,000 on an ongoing basis. So you wouldn't need 50,000 in there at one time. The 20,000 would continue to be replenished as funds are expended from that.
So if I could interject here, I maybe got what Bob said wrong, but in my opinion, it doesn't matter what the amount is. It might well be 50,000. I mean, this is a huge project. The point is that it has to be reimbursed by Hillwood.
Oh, yes.
They have no choice.
Sure, and again, this provision is just designates the select board as the
Right.
authorizing agent for a department or board to have access to this fund.
Yep.
Well, when I read this, it says that it has to do with the scope of services that are provided, that the developer has the opportunity to review and also comment on the scope of services of whoever we pick for a consultant.
Well, again, that's the scope of services. They don't decide who the town chooses for a consultant per se. They simply have a right to comment.
Right.
They don't have any decision-making authority here.
Well, number seven, moving on to 7, it allows an appeal to come forward to the Board of Selectmen. If they don't like the consultant or the scope of service or anything, they can appeal it to the Select Board.
Right,
I just want to make sure.
But
You
they
just
don't
blocked
choose.
it, so I haven't read the whole thing, but I'm trying to scroll it as we are here. So
I
I
would
just want
just-
to make sure that
I would just
we
point out
understand
real
what our
quickly-
role is in this fund.
Sure. I just want to point out real quickly that this is the document I did email to the board, even though I failed to put it in the packet. This is the same document that I emailed to the board.
I have a quick question on number 6.
Mr. Hoffman.
To go back where, in the case of a public body subject to the Massachusetts open meeting law, the decision to retain an outside consultant shall be made by majority vote at a duly noticed public meeting. Is that at a select board meeting, or is that a?
That would be like if the Planning Board or the Conservation
sure.
Commission needs extra funds to review this, then that would have to be on one of their agendas
Okay,
and
so-
done in an open meeting. That's
any-
how I'm reading it anyway.
Okay.
Yep.
Although I'd like to, I can't just make that decision in this agreement, so.
So basically, who's ever requesting it, it'll be at their meetings, whether it's conservation or planning
Right.
board. or-
Whatever committee was requesting them.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other comments from the board? Hearing none. Is there a motion?
Again, I would ask that you, in that motion, that you specify the initial deposit of 20,000, as well as subject to any minor amendments recommended by town council.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement for reestablishment of a maintenance and use of review fee fund pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53G, with an initial deposit into the fund of $20,000, and what was the second thing?
And any minor amendments
And any minor amendments
recommended by town council.
recommended by town council.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Yeah, just,
Oh, Mr. Belvin.
Chairman,
Yes.
yeah, just because I just got this and I just don't think I've had enough time to really look it over enough. I can't vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belvin. Mr. LaFond, is there a need, I would imagine there a need to have this done this evening?
The sooner the better. Yes, the developer is very eager to move forward with the fire department.
And,
So it's
okay,
kind of a hot item.
All right.
And again, I repeat that this was the agreement that I forwarded to the board last week via email.
So we had it already.
Yeah.
Right. So
all right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Mr. Hoffman, was that a no?
No.
So it's 2-2.
So that means it fails.
That means it fails.
So if I could get some direction as to how to move forward so that we can,
I guess if I could ask for some clarification, Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Belbin, are you voting no because you're against the fund, or are you voting no because you don't feel you've had enough time to read it?
Well, I don't remember getting a copy of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through my mail to see, did I miss it at some point?
That's fine. Mr.
Yeah,
Hoffman,
I'm the same. I'm actually looking through my email now to
Okay.
see if I missed it. If I did, I apologize.
no,
Okay.
no problem, no problem.
okay.
This is going to be a project that goes on for years.
No.
So as much as people want to get moving, a couple of weeks is not going to
Well, we have, I
significantly
think
impede this, but obviously.
we have a couple of options here, Mr. LaFond. We could wait until August, or if the board was amenable, we could consider a special meeting if people were available, perhaps Monday morning, just for this one item.
It could
yeah.
be a Zoom meeting if you.
Well, people could join by Zoom if they needed to. Mr. Belbin, would you be available, say, at 8:30 Monday morning?
That's fine.
Mr. Hoffman, would that work for you? Ms. Hewens?
I think so. Hang on. I'll say yes.
Okay.
If it doesn't,
All
I'll
right,
let you.
why don't we set and post a special meeting for Monday morning? Mr. LaFond, since I don't have my calendar with me, could you give us the date for Monday?
That would be the 27th.
All right,
Monday,
so
I'm sorry.
26th.
The 26th.
for Monday, July 26th, for 8:30 in the morning, just for this one particular item. All right? Thank you. All right, moving on.
I think I'm free, Mark.
Excuse me?
I think I'm free.
Okay, thank you.
If anybody, again, if you give me any feedback, and Bob, I will presume to make that amendment that you pointed out.
And if,
Okay.
Mr. LaFond, if you could just let Ms. Bogart know as quickly as possible, so she's aware of the meeting, because obviously she's not able to attend this evening. All right, let's see. Going back to an agenda item, we skipped over a discussion and possible vote on the Forest Street Property Memorandum of Understanding. Ms. Clark, would you like to? Yes. Yes? Ms. Layton?
I'm gonna share, because that's for Jen. That's for Bob Elder.
Oh, one of you, one of you could sit in Jen's spot if you like.
I'll sit there. I'll stay here. Oh, no, I can go over here. Hold on. Talk about moving the furniture.
Take the big boy spots.
Hey, who's that? Jen? Make sure I'm not her.
No, you're
No.
Bob.
Oh, Bob. Hi, Bob.
All right. Ms. Clark.
Good evening. I believe I know everybody here in the room, but I will introduce myself, Sharon Clark, Chairman of the RDA. To my right is Joanna Layton, the longest-serving member of the RDA and the keeper of all things as far as history goes. And this has partly to do with that. Last week, I believe, I sent Mark and Jim copies of the 94th Street deed and MOU and the history of it. And just to give it briefly, There's a parcel of land that's owned ostensibly by the redevelopment authority, and it's right up on, it's given the address of 90 Forest Street or 0 North Main Street at times. And it's right opposite Quickies. It's near where all the Nutrient building is going. It's right next to it. The RDA has been trying to sell it since before I was on the board 3 years ago. And
Yeah, well, 2014.
and we do have a buyer for it. We went into PNS a week ago or so, on June 30th, and with Jack Williams. And in doing that, we discovered that the RDA does not have the paper trail needed to actually convey the property properly. And the history is this, and I sent these to Mark and Jim, and I hope he sent them all out to you.
You sent them to everybody, I think. I got them.
I think Mr. LaFond forwarded it on. I believe I asked Mr. LaFond to share it with the board.
As long as everybody had it, but I'll recap quickly. The property was taken for taxes and foreclosed on in 2014 by the town. There's an outstanding tax bill of some $37,000 and some change, I believe Craig told us today. That was the cost of the taking in the back taxes that are still sitting on the books. In the April town meeting of 2015, the treasurer tax collector turned that property over to the Board of Selectmen at the time. And August 6th of that year, 2015, Jack Hunter, who was the town planner at the time, at a vote of the select board, the Board of Selectmen voted to turn the property over to the RDA. After Elaine and due diligence search, we have not been able to come up with the original deed. We haven't been able to come up with a prototype of the original deed or a draft copy. There have been 3 planners since then. We just can't find it. So we did ask KP Law to draw up a new deed based on the information that they had, conveying the property from the Board of Selectmen to the RDA so that we may properly convey the property to the buyer probably towards the end of the year. Along with that is a MOU, a memo of understanding, which is basically how the property is going to be utilized, or it's an agreement between the Board of Selectmen and the RDA. That was signed. We had a signed MOU. And as I point out to Ron, you signed it, so where's the deed? He does not recall. But we did ask the KP Law to look at that and reevaluate it and write up another one, which she did. Catherine Klein over at KP Law. What we're here for tonight is to give you the deed, ask you to sign it. The memo of understanding, the MOU, we're having a little bit of an issue with, and we might want to make some small changes. And that's a negotiation between the Board of Selectmen, Rick, and the RDA. Just some tweaking on what she said. That doesn't necessarily have to happen tonight, the signing of the MOU, because we want to make some changes too.
Okay.
I believe Joanna Layton will be going in to see Rick to talk
Yeah.
about some of the changes.
Right.
That sums it up. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or
For myself, yeah.
I can pass it to Joanna, who knows more than I do about this.
Definitely, the quitclaim deed is fine. I think that's, can be signed and approved and signed by all the selectmen. And at our next meeting or whenever, we will sign it as well, and then KP Law will take it and record it, and that will complete that part of it. As far as the closing, that's separate. We're not ready to do that yet, as he has other things. So, but the MOU definitely has to be re-looked at again.
So perhaps we can get that on our August meeting. We can talk about it then.
Sure. Well,
What did
we
you
should
s-
have that accomplished by then.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? Mark? Mr. Townsend?
No, the MOU is not ready yet, so I suggested that they
Oh,
they
okay.
consider it for our August meeting.
Okay.
And I would like to be able to speak directly with Rick to let him understand in the past how it went when we had these MOUs. The other thing too, KP Law, she doesn't really understand. We always did what we called a settlement. The MOU tells you we get 10% of an administrative fee. But in addition to that, gross to that amount is a settlement that we would prepare and give to our lawyer. I have to tell you that KP Law is not our lawyer. We really have a lawyer called Katie O'Donnell out in Watertown. And there was a slip-up. We just let it go. It was more comfortable for town planner, Jim Walsh, to continue speaking because he was already working with KP Law. So I really didn't say anything about that and let it go. But going forward, any more properties or anything else we do, I'd like to get the agreement and have Katie come in and really meet with a. This is all brand new. I'm the only one left for the original committee since 2006, believe me. So Rick, if you don't mind, the MOU really needs to get worked again. I'd like to, at your leisure and mine, together, get a call. Whether you want to bring Katie on that call so she thoroughly can understand what I'm saying, that would be great, and we could clear that up, and I think we can do that pretty quickly.
Is
I
that,
think one of the reasons we use KP Law is that we discovered, as we started trying to find the deed, it wasn't on record at the registry, it wasn't in, anywhere in the office. Jim Walsh inherited, an office that had 3 previous planners in it. He wasn't able to find it, so we use KP Law simply to go back and kind of truly reinvent the wheel that we needed.
but your lawyer is Kathleen O'Donnell?
Pardon?
The RDA's lawyer is Kathleen O'Donnell?
What did she say?
Our RDA lawyer is Kathleen.
Yes, it is,
Yeah.
Catherine O'Donnell.
Yep. And, the deed and the MOU is really separate from the closing. The buyer doesn't expect to close until after he's gone through site plan review, and that is part of the PNS, is that it's contingent on being able to do what he needed to do. One of the things that the RDA has done with this property is we took it through the zoning process because it needed a variance for frontage, and that has been renewed, extended, and because of COVID, it was allowed to be extended for the 6 months since it expired. And that should give the buyer the time that he needs to clear site plan review, and we'll have the deed then and the MOU, and I believe it will finally be off our agenda.
Good.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
No.
Mr. LaFawn, we don't need kind of motion to sign the deed, right? Because that's already been,
No, I don't
Acted
think
on.
so. It's, I wouldn't think you do at this stage.
no?
Put it this way, I guess under the circumstances in the past, maybe it would be good to have as much of a public record as possible.
Exactly. I would agree with
So
you.
what would your suggested wording for a motion be?
Sharon, do you have anything to offer with this?
I don't know, what did they say back in
Yeah, because
2015?
Obviously, I don't think any of us were on the, well, perhaps Sarah.
I was, yes. So I can make a motion to approve the quitclaim deed between the town of Carver and the, and the Carver Redevelopment Authority concerning 0 North Main Street / 90 Forest Street. How's that?
Fine with me. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Belbin?
I just want to know the sale property of the house, the property there, between your 10% that the redevelopment keeps, and how much money have you already spent on that property?
We're keeping a list,
Yeah.
and Joanna, as treasurer, has been keeping a list. It's ongoing, and it won't be until we get to settlement that we'll know what the final number is. I mean,
We're
we're
still
count-
getting bills from KP Law.
We're counting the cost of the boundaries that we put in
Oh, yes.
and the cost of the survey.
Yeah, and we had to go to the registry and
Yep.
re-register
We
them.
have a complete accounting that will be presented at the settlement.
Do we have like a ballpark figure of how much the town will be getting back from this property?
The sale price is $150,000. The 10% off the top is 15. The cost of the back taxes is just under 38,000. Our costs will probably come in around 5,000. I think when we add everything together, what we've paid for the past bills and what we anticipate is legal bills, and then the town gets the rest.
Okay, so we're saying around 90, 95.
I couldn't give you an exact estimate right now, but that might be somewhere in the ballpark.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Anyone else? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
ladies. Please let us know if you need anything else.
Well, I need you to
from us.
sign the deed.
We will absolutely sign the deed.
Elaine, can you hang on to the original deed because I will need it for our August 3rd meeting where we will sign it. Okay? Okay, thank you. And you have a copy here that you can use?
We have copies. Do
Okay, don't just sign one.
Okay.
you want us to sign the original?
Well, whatever you sign becomes the original.
Ah, okay. I thought you just asked Elaine if she had the
No,
original.
I need the signed copy.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay, thank you
All right.
so much.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it looks like we need a notary.
Yeah, I could do that.
Oh, good. Thank you, Elaine.
If you all, are you going to sign the one in front of you, and then I can notarize it? If you sign it now?
Sure,
We can do that.
I'll sign.
All right. Moving on. Minutes, license topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Our next meeting will now be July 26th at 8:30 a.m. Minutes of June 15th, 2021.
Do we want to
There.
wait till Jen and Bob are here in person to do that?
Yeah, let's wait.
Put those off, all right, we'll table those. Let's see, we have a one-day special license, the Carver Sportsman's Club on August 29th, 2021, from 10 to 8 p.m. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the one-day license.
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
Did Bob didn't answer that?
Bob, were you an aye on that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Okay,
I recused myself from this vote. No, I don't,
oh, okay. So
as
it's
a
three,
member,
all right, 3-0. All right, and we have a request for road race approval, the Pilgrim Man Triathlon for September 18th, 2021. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the request for road race. Pilgrim Man.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Select Board Community Announcements. Mr. Belbin?
I'm good, thanks.
All right?
Vote on the last one?
It was unanimous.
Okay.
Mr. Hoffman?
I have nothing.
Ms. Hewens?
Thank you. I just wanted to remind the residents that the Carver Old Home Day is being held on Saturday, July 31st. There's going to be a road race. I think it starts at 8, if I'm not mistaken. The Old Home Day goes till approximately 3, but the clam bake starts at 1. And if you haven't already gotten your tickets, please do. The number to call for those tickets is 508-866-9196. Okay.
Wonderful. I also want to remind everybody about Old Home Day. It's a wonderful event, and I hope everybody can attend. I also want to let the town know that Susan Gifford has informed us that the Carver Council on Aging has received a $20,000 earmark for various items, including electronic items, window replacement at the facility. So thank you for that. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.